Crafting your message. So this is an important one. They're all important, but this one serves as the foundation of an active B2G go-to-market strategy. Creating effective messages is the way you can actually do lead gen that works in this market. And creating an effective message is really what allows you to transition from a passive, scrambling to respond, chasing RFP B2G strategy to an active strategy where you're pushing out your messages and you're responding to opportunities that are sent directly to you by governments. The great thing about this is that there is a formulaic approach you can use to create messages that you know will resonate with government clients. And that's what I'll be teaching in this lesson. So before we get into it, let's cover a few learning objectives. So first and foremost, we're going to talk about your message and what I mean by that. I'll give you a definition for the message in the context of B2G selling. Then I'm going to describe a concept called purpose points and teach you about where they fit within a message and what they do. Talk about the role of pain points in B2G messaging. And then finally, we're going to teach you the process for putting all of these things together to create these effective messages that will resonate with governments. So let's start by defining your message. Your message is the way you will frame discussions with potential clients. So it's not a specific email or ad campaign or any other specific piece of marketing material, right? It's the way you're talking about how you help your potential clients, these SLED agencies, solve their problems. It is your value proposition. It's telling these government clients how you can help them achieve their goals. It's also not singular, right? You're not going to have one message. We want you to have several. Certain messages will resonate better with certain segments of the market. And you're going to need to test that and find out what message works best with what segments of the SLED market. And again, we will teach you the approach, the process for developing these messages so you can put them out there and begin testing them. First off, let's talk about where your message fits within a sales cycle. And, it's meant to be delivered at the earliest part of the sales cycle, very much top of funnel, right? We're looking to create lead generation. So your message fits at the very beginning of the SLED sales cycle, well before you are responding to an RFP. If you are developing your message when you're responding to an RFP, you're too late. You want that message to be delivered to government clients before they have ever started composing an RFP. That's not to say you won't rely on your message throughout the full sales cycle. You will. You're going to reinforce that message throughout. But when you're drafting your messages and getting something in there, figuring out how you're going to be describing your product and how you help governments solve their problems, you need to be doing it and delivering it to governments before they are in a formal bid motion, right? You want to get these things out as early as you possibly can. Let's talk about something I call purpose points. These are the foundation of your message. And this purpose points are really the most important concept you need to understand if you're going to sell to SLED clients. They are the initiatives that governments are looking to address, and they are initiatives you're going to build your message around. You want to tie your product, your service, your solution to specific initiatives that we know governments are going to be allocating funding to address. Your purpose points are those initiatives. And we'll get a bit more specific about that and why they're important in just a second here. So the reason purpose points are important is because SLED purchasing motivation is not driven purely by a financial return on investment. Unlike in the private sector, SLED entities don't make a purchase to increase their revenue, right? Their revenue is tax driven. It's relatively fixed. They're not looking to make money off some sort of product or make a purchase and expect to see that purchase help them bring in more revenue. That's not what they're looking to do, right? SLED purchasing motivation is driven by an initiative-based ROI. What I mean by that is they are going to measure that return on investment as whether or not that purchase helped them achieve the initiative they set out to achieve. So if we think about this, elected officials, right, city council members, school board members, doesn't matter what it is, right, county commissioners, they are elected by taxpayers to address the issues that they campaigned on. So it could be something like improving roads or creating more public parks, improving the sidewalks for children to walk to school. Elected officials campaign on those things. They are elected by taxpayers with a directive to address those issues that they were elected to address. And then they give a directive to government staff to use the funds in the budget to address those initiatives. So, when you are selling to a government client, you don't need to be telling them how your solution will ultimately bring them more revenue or save them money. You need to be describing to them how your solution is going to help them achieve the initiative that they have been directed by the elected body and the representative taxpayers, the voters to address. So again, this is such an important concept to understand. Purpose points are the initiatives you will be tying your solution, your product, your service to, and they are what motivate government agencies to make a purchase. So how do you find these things? How do you identify your purpose points, the initiatives that you'll be tying your solution to? There are a few ways to do that. I'm going to go over two approaches here. One is sort of macro level and the other is micro level. So at the macro level, a great way, and this is the strategy I prefer and the strategy I use, a great way to find purpose points is to go on the association, the membership societies of SLED agencies and or SLED employees as well, right? So National League of Cities, New York State Association of Counties, National Association of Counties, Government Finance Officers Association. I think the other one over in the top right is the Michigan Municipal League. These are places that you can go to learn about the initiatives that cities and counties and other SLED agencies are looking to address. Now, a major part of all of these associations is to advocate on behalf of their membership. So the National League of Cities, which I will use as an example here, advocates on behalf of all the cities in the United States. Their advocacy consists of collecting information about the issues and the challenges that their membership, the cities, are dealing with, and then lobbying the federal government for funding to be allocated to states and cities to address the issues they're dealing with. So, to do that, they essentially synthesize and distill all of the challenges that cities across the country are dealing with, and they put them into policy statements where they advocate for money to be allocated to address these issues. So, if you go to the websites, these are all public, of any of these groups, and every SLED agency has a membership association, they all have one at both the state and the federal level, right? There's going to be a national one as well as a state one in most cases. Sometimes maybe it'll be regionally, but there's usually a couple of levels to these things. They're like nesting dolls. But if you go to these membership associations and read their websites, you will start to understand the issues that these members, right, their individual members, the cities, the counties, and so forth, are dealing with. And that is where you can start to identify your purpose points. So let me give you a more tangible example here. So this is from the National League of Cities website, and on their front page, you can see up at the top, we have an advocacy center. Every one of these associations, membership societies, whatever they are, they will have a place on their website where they describe their advocacy efforts. Everyone will have them. It may not always be called an advocacy center, but they'll all have something where they talk about their advocacy initiatives and what they are trying to do for their members. So in this example, when I scroll down to the bottom, you can see there is a municipal policy document. In that document, it's really just a collection of purpose points. It's a synthesized and distilled list of all the issues that cities in the United States are dealing with and actively seeking funds to address. So going to these sites is a great way to begin identifying purpose points. And I'll show you what I mean here. If you go to the National League of Cities, they have a bunch of different advocacy committees. So in this case, this is the Energy, Environment, and Natural Resources Committee. And that committee is made up of the governing bodies or individual city council members and mayors of cities that have signed on to be part of this advocacy committee. So we know all of those cities that have signed on to be part of this advocacy committee care about energy, environment, and natural resources. And within this, we can find more specifics, right? What do they care about within this category of energy, environment, and natural resources? And you can see right at the top of the page in the highlighted text, they talk about how the committee is focusing on issues pertaining to water infrastructure, community and residential affordability, climate change mitigation, adaptation, and community resilience. Those are purpose points. They are listing your purpose points. They are listing the initiatives that cities are looking to deal with and are lobbying the federal government to advocate funds to help them deal with. Those are purpose points that you can use as the foundation of a message. And it doesn't have to be specific to energy, environment, and natural resources. Again, you go to this website and you will see a whole list of different advocacy committees. So it covers almost everything, whether it's community engagement, uh, transportation, they're all there. And they will all list these things that you can use as purpose points. So this is more of the micro level approach to identifying purpose points. And, it's important to remember here that when we talked about the budget, we talked about how the budget tells a story. And the highlighted text here just gives you a great example of that. The city of Little Rock was awarded or received an award from the Government Finance Officers Association for meeting certain criteria of their annual budget. And that criteria means that it needs to be published in a way that it serves as both a policy document, a financial plan and operations guide, and a communications device. That last piece is critical here because it's basically telling you they are using it to communicate the issues that the city cares about. So if you go to the city of Little Rock and you read their budget document, you will find the initiatives they are looking to address, the things they care about. Those are your purpose points. Now, while those purpose points are, in this case, specific to the city of Little Rock, the reality is that purpose points never exist in a vacuum. These initiatives are almost never something that are specific to only one city across the United States or to a very small segment. No, these initiatives, these purpose points are just generally these initiatives that governments are dealing with are things that you will see throughout the country in different places. So it's not just initiatives that elected officials campaigned on that can be purpose points. There are some other things that can be purpose points as well. So a few examples, laws, policies, regulations. Sometimes a new law comes into place and governments are required to comply with it. And that is absolutely a purpose point. If you have a solution that will help governments comply with a new law, policy, or regulation, that's something you should absolutely be tying yourself to and describing how you can help SLED agencies comply with a new law, policy, or regulation. Funding opportunities, right? Grants. These things come down. There's money allocated for governments to do something, and they can use those funds if they have a plan or a solution to address, and that is allowable within the grant guidelines. So if you understand and learn about the grants that are out there for different SLED agencies, and learn that your product or service or whatever it is you do is eligible and can be used by governments to get grant opportunities, that is a great thing to do. And that is another type of purpose point that you can align your solution, your product, your service, whatever. You can align that to grant opportunities as well. So those are a number of different things that serve as purpose points. And again, you'll see how we use purpose points in just a minute, but understand that these are the foundation of an effective message in the SLED market. These are what allow you to transition from a passive B2G go-to-market strategy to an active B2G go-to-market strategy. So what about pain points? The pain points are very important everywhere, right? When you're selling, you always want to understand how you address your potential clients' pain points. But they are really in a different place when we're talking about the SLED market. And that's because if you talk about a pain point without tying it to a purpose point, it's a pain point that doesn't have any money allocated to address it, right? Pain points need to fit within a purpose point. That's why we got a pepperoni pizza here, right? The pain points are within the purpose point. Those are the pain points that will be addressed. So pain points are the obstacles that are in the way of a government achieving their initiative. They are the obstacles in the way of the government achieving a purpose point. So when you talk about pain points, you need to talk about them in the way that they relate to the purpose point, in the way that they relate to the achievement of a government initiative. So let's look at a more tangible example here. So this is from the School Superintendents Association, and this is on their website where they talk about a grant, a fund opportunity that is the ESSER dollars. These are dollars that are allocated to school districts across the country, and that is a purpose point, right? As we discussed before. Hey, there's a grant opportunity. School districts can use that. That's a purpose point. The pain point is also listed in this same statement where they talk about needing an additional 4 million man hours per year for a district to collect and report the data, the required data collection and reporting requirements of the ESSER spending. So what this means is that governments have access to funds through the ESSER program, but they can only use those funds if they comply with the grant's data collection and reporting requirements. Those data collection and reporting requirements are tough, right? They require a lot of work. So let's say you have a solution, maybe it's a workflow automation platform, something like that, that can address the pain point. That's great, but you need to talk about it within the purpose point. So let's just look at that a little bit here. In this case, again, the purpose point is the ESSER spending, and the pain point is the ESSER reporting. So putting these together in a message, in a narrative that will become a message is, hey, our workflow automation solution eliminates manual ESSER reporting. So your district can focus on using the grant dollars and not the tedious paperwork required to actually get those dollars and to use those dollars, right? So this is an example of how you can leverage pain points within a purpose point to create a message that's very specific, very tailored to an issue that we know for a fact, in this case, schools are dealing with because it's written on the Superintendent's Association website. And you can put those together into an effective message that very clearly communicates how you are going to help schools achieve this initiative, achieve this goal, which is using the ESSER dollars that they have been allocated. You are going to resolve the pain point of the man hours required for reporting so that they can actually use the dollars they have been allocated. That is how you take a purpose point and a pain point, weave them together into a narrative that you can use as your message. Let's look at another example here. So this is from I believe, a city's climate plan, and they list goals that they have for their climate plan. And within those goals, they also list some of the challenges they're facing. So if you look at this, you'll see those goals themselves be a sustainable and resilient community. And on the right, in the infrastructure and resilience side, we have facilitate an efficient multimodal transportation network. Those are purpose points, right? Those are initiatives. There is an initiative for the city to be sustainable and resilient community. There is an initiative for the city to facilitate an efficient multimodal transportation network. The highlighted text in here, which is a bit small on the screen, so I apologize, but that is a listing of the pain points. So on the left, you can see the pain point here is the reliability of the water, sewer, and wastewater systems. And on the right, it is the traffic congestion, right? There is traffic congestion. So if you have a solution that can deal with these things, you can put that into a narrative, create your purpose pain point narrative. And on the left, the example is our solution facilitates a sustainable and resilient community by increasing the reliability of your water, wastewater, and stormwater systems. On the right, our solution facilitates an efficient transportation network by minimizing traffic congestion. So let me once again emphasize that these messages, these narratives, this is not meant to be something that you take, copy and paste and, send out an e-blast. No, this is something you may put in an email in some sense, but it's more the way you will frame your discussions. Anytime you're talking to a client, you're not just thinking about your solution and how it's going to increase the reliability of their wastewater and stormwater sewer. You're going to increase the reliability of those systems so that they can so as to facilitate a sustainable and resilient community. The reason for that is that is what the money has been allocated to do, to facilitate a sustainable and resilient community. The money has been allocated to facilitate an efficient transportation network, right? Those are the initiatives. Those are the purpose points. Within those are the pain points you can help governments resolve in order for them to achieve the purpose point. So, as I said, there is a formulaic approach that you can use to develop these effective messages. First, identify your purpose points. You can go to state association pages, national, federal level association pages for SLED entities. You can read through those and you can identify purpose points. You can identify the issues that their members, the SLED agencies, are dealing with. Within that, you can find the specific challenges that they are facing, the specific pain points that are obstructing them from achieving those purpose points. And then you can figure out, well, does my solution help resolve these pain points that will allow the SLED entity to achieve their purpose point? And when the answer to that is yes, you have an effective message. And you need to describe how your solution will help prospective clients achieve their purpose point by resolving the relevant pain points. That is your message. That is the way you will frame all of your communications with SLED clients. Let's talk a little bit about delivering your message, and we'll cover this in much more depth in the next session. But if you have created an effective message, it doesn't do anything if you don't deliver it the right way. So, as you can see, I've crossed out cold emails here. What I mean by that is if you just develop a message, copy and paste it, send it out in an e-blast, and think that's going to win you a deal, you're wrong. That will not work. That it just doesn't work. And it doesn't work generally in any sales really anymore, but it works even less so in the government space. So, how can you deliver your message? A great way is through a webinar. So, you may do a webinar on your solution and talk about how during that webinar, very specifically, how your solution eliminates pain points and allows governments to achieve their purpose points by eliminating the pain points that are obstructing them from doing so. You can write blogs about it, right? Blog about how your solution helps cities achieve a specific purpose point. Social media posts, conference presentations are a great way to do this, right? If you have a very relevant message about a very relevant purpose point, and you even have some tangible examples of how your solution helps resolve those purpose points, you should be trying to get in front of audiences at various association conferences, at various SLED entity conferences, and discussing that. Sponsored articles, right? You could do that too. There's a lot of different ways to deliver your message, but a cold email, thinking you're just going to send an email and get some immediate response, is just not going to work. But if you use your message in an email to invite them, the potential clients, to a very relevant webinar, or to read a very relevant blog post, or you write a very relevant social media post that includes your message, that is how you will start to build out your sales funnel. That is how you will generate leads within this space. Just to wrap things up, let's take another look at what an effective message looks like. And again, this is getting back to what we discussed, but an effective message looks something like this. Hey, check out our recent blog post to learn how your city can reduce traffic congestion and achieve your climate goals with traffic intelligence technology. So, of course, in this example, this is coming from somebody who, coming from a company that sells in traffic intelligence technology. And within this message, let's break this down a little bit. First off, there's a purpose point, which is achieving your climate goals. Secondly, we've got a pain point, which is reducing traffic congestion. And note that there is a call to action here, but it's not saying, hey, let's get on a call and I'll show you, because that's not going to work. But it is saying, hey, here's a blog where you can learn about reducing traffic congestion in order to achieve your climate goals, right? Here's a blog where you can learn how to eliminate a pain point that's currently preventing you from achieving your purpose point. That is an effective message in this market. Let's look at the other example here. So this is another one where, hey, attend our webinar and you can learn how to take advantage of ESSER funds without getting bogged down with the endless reporting requirements. Again, this is very specific, right? You've got your purpose point in there. You're going to send this out to school districts and they're going to say, oh, ESSER funds. That is very relevant to us. We've been thinking about getting those funds allocated to us, but boy, we really don't want to deal with all the required reporting because that's just going to be a mess, right? You know that there are SLED agencies out there dealing with this exact issue because you found it reported on the Superintendent Association's website, right? It's there. And you are saying, hey, we're going to help you learn how you can deal with this. Again, it has a call to action, which is attend our webinar. You're not trying to get them on a demo call because, again, it's not going to work. You need to be a partner. You need to be an educator and show that you know what you're talking about. Demonstrate that to the governments, and they will start to want to build relationships with you. And so, an effective message, it looks like what you see on the screen because it's addressing purpose points and talking about how you can relieve pain points that are preventing them from achieving those purpose points. And it's also demonstrating that you are there to be a partner. You are there to educate first and foremost. You're going to earn their trust before you sell them anything. And that is what works in this market. Okay, so that is the presentation for today. Crafting your message. Again, this is so important. This is the way you become an active B2G seller. This is the way you put forth an active B2G campaign and you move away from being passive and just chasing RFPs all day long. This is what you do to generate leads in this market. This is the foundation of that active B2G sales and marketing campaign. So watch it twice or don't. It doesn't matter as long as you take away the important points, which are that identify your purpose points, identify pain points within those purpose points, understand how your solution, your product, your service helps SLED agencies resolve pain points and achieve purpose points. Put that together, put it into a message. Your message, again, it's not a specific email, though it could be used in that. It is the way you frame your discussions with SLED clients.